Hey Rockstars, I'm JB, expert salesperson and master presenter.
I'm the doctor, psychologist, and behavioral expert.
This is the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab podcast.
We're high-performance coaches that help service-based professionals and entrepreneurs take their skills to the next level.
70% of entrepreneurs fail, which is why every week we have real talk with real entrepreneurs to help ensure you are not one of them.
We're also the inventors of the Be Rich mindset,
where we rise to mastery,
inspire greatness,
celebrate knowledge,
and help others along the way.
So join us in the lab.
And now, on to the show.
So first of all, welcome to Better Business Brewing, part two of the Deuce doc. It's pretty exciting.
I've been using that bad joke
all the time.
I've been using that bad joke all day today. I've been happy Tuesday to everybody. They don't find it as amusing as I have.
I saw the Instagram reel too. I thought you had a better choice of music than me. You went to Rick Ross. I was so impressed.
Wow. So when you watched it, we talk about like the challenges of doing things on social media. When you watched it, was it sped up?
The sound was all whack. Your sound was all over the place.
So it was perfect when I uploaded it. It was perfect the first time I watched it. And then all of a sudden it went to like 2 times speed.
Yeah, I can't speak to Instagram.
And Instagram deleted the one I did the other. I did one that was really good over the weekend, and Instagram decided they didn't want it anymore and just got rid of it totally.
Were you inappropriate?
No, it just
it's always inappropriate.
I don't know.
It's like his brand.
That was at the beach, like maybe somebody that was reviewing stuff. But it was
you not to wear that thong. I told you.
Like all my sound just went away.
I was gonna say you shouldn't have been at the nude beach there doing your videos.
If only.
No.
It would bring back a different. Which I almost went with that song, "Bicycle Ride" by Queen.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
My bicycle, which if you ever seen that video,
I don't think I've seen the video.
There was a bunch of nude people riding a bicycle.
All right.
Very on Queen.
I'm glad you weren't nude on the post, but that might be why Instagram pulled it. I mean, if you're riding a bike naked, you're gonna get pulled from the gram, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that was the reason.
Oh, they're worth it at least.
Right. They just took away all my volume, so I was talking to nobody. I don't know what happened. Instagram has been the bane of my existence this week.
It's Instagram, but we're not here to talk about Instagram, are we? So let's get everybody caught up on what this is. Like for anybody who doesn't know, so this is Better Business Brewing with JB, myself, and the Doc, the two-headed dragon over here, the dangerous duo. But we're joined this week and tonight with STK Suzanne Taylor of Taylor Consulting. Suzanne, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
We're pretty pumped. So we always answer live questions from our audience. We also address challenges and questions that people ask us when they join our group. So anybody can ask us questions live. That's a part of the EML. If you're not a part of the EML, that's okay. You can go ahead and right on that ticker there, you can join and you can still ask us any questions live that you might. So sometimes we get a little bit off track and we go into our own tangents, but it's really supposed to be a really nice conversation. We do always kick it off though with one thing, super important, can't forget it. It's literally in the title. What are you drinking?
Oh, today I even brought my bottle.
Tell us about this.
I've been off alcohol since January 1st. I had a couple glasses of wine here or there, but
impressive.
You know, I'm not doing the during the week thing. So I'm having a lime mint elderflower sparkling water from Whole Foods. I am wishing it had gin in it right now, but I'm making do without.
I consider to appreciate the same thing because my first thought when I heard elderflower and mint, I'm like, oh, that would be really delicious with gin.
Yes, It is. That's how I originally found it. But, you know.
Maybe a rum too, like kind of a little mojito, like a take on the mojito with the muddled mint, maybe?
That's not my drink of choice. I would always go for gin. So.
Oh, I do like me a good gin, especially when it starts warming up. And well, we live in Florida, so that's every day.
Yeah,
Pretty
tons
good.
of ice, lots of lime.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
That's awesome. So, Doc, what about you, man? I know you are in the office, but I
am in the office. It
There.
has been a long day of therapizing. That is the word I am coining.
Therapizing. You coined that.
Therapizing.
Okay.
Love that.
Trademarking that one.
Yes, we are. And because it's been a long day, I am channeling my inner rock, and I am drinking a Zoa.
Oh,
Oh, that's from The Rock. That's his energy drink.
This is energy drink. I'm hoping we can get a sponsorship sometime. So we're going to tag like crazy. So drink your Zoa and let's effing go.
nice.
That's pretty cool. Is it good? I've never had it.
It is delicious, Dr. Rock. It is my favorite thing I've ever consumed, ever.
Is it caffeinated?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just checking.
Although he drinks this in the gym all the time and then lifts like 5,000 pounds, and I have barely been able to get myself off the chair. So having a little different effect for me than it does for The Rock.
He probably has a little
Otherwise,
bit
we're
different body
exactly
composition
the same.
too.
Him and I are exactly the same in every other way, except for how the drink relates to me.
That's
If
awesome.
you smell what I'm cooking.
I do.
That is absolutely awesome. I love it. All right. Well, so on my end, and I had to stop the music for this because it's like drum roll time. I am taking a trip back to America's oldest brewery, the one and only Yuengling.
Oh yes.
So going back to a little bit of the Pennsylvania roots here, the Pensy roots. Yuengling, Steel City tonight. Yuengling. I'm gonna put it up here. I might be the only one of us drinking something alcoholic, but this is where I channel my energy late at night, because this is kind of, you were saying, STK, this is like past your digital bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
This is just kind of like past my bedtime.
In general. Okay.
In general, like I would happily go to bed around like 8 o'clock and just wake up at 4 a.m. every day, and I would be pretty happy doing that.
Me too.
I'd have no issue with that. But for any of our guests out there who happen to be watching, listening, joining us live, here's to you. Salute. And if you are watching, drop us a comment. Let us know what you're drinking. We'd love to know in the meantime.
Cheers.
Oh, that's always so good. The first sip is always so good.
I'm not sure if I say that first or not. I think that's usually.
Yeah.
We did backwards.
I'm excited. I think Antoinette sent us a whole bunch of challenges from our group members, Doc.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, so a lot of people have been struggling with certain things. When we ask people to join the EML, we just say, "Hey, what's the top challenge you're dealing with?" So I don't know if you got that in front of you, Doc, but I'm gonna pull some of that up, I think.
Don't depend on for me for anything today, other than smiling at the camera and being awesome.
Okay.
Anything tech wise, it's on you.
All right, so I'm actually gonna start us off with my buddy, and we can tag him on this, I'm sure, at Anthony Morrison, who I used to wholesale with for many years with a Fortune 50 company. So he and I worked external sales, Fortune 50 company, great guy. So he's got years of experience doing what he does, right? He's a really, he's not starting fresh in what he does, but he's in a really crowded space, and he's trying to meet as many people as he can to stand out because it is so crowded. So I think just for the first topic to tackle here, what do we do when we're in a really crowded space? How do we stand out? And I'm going to add a twist to this because I kind of want us to think about this. How do we stand out when we have to kind of also stay in the box a little bit, right? When we're in an industry like the investment space and financial services, where you can't necessarily just do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting one. So STK, I don't know if you got some thoughts on that.
I
If you
do.
need to jump right in, but
I'm ready. I'm
Let's
ready.
do
So I would say, connecting with as many people as possible might not be the train to jump on. It might be better when you're in a crowded space to actually develop closer, tighter, almost like reciprocal power partners. You think of forming your own group with those strategic partners in it, maybe 10, 20 of those people, and you're the trusted advisor. You're the advisor. And I'm thinking of a friend of mine who's a financial advisor who did that for himself. And his group would meet once a month for lunch in person. I was part of that group because we've been friends since high school. And the group grew and grew and grew, but he never allowed another financial advisor in that space. He's the man. He's the connector. He's the introducer. He has introduced me to at least 100 people over the years. I don't know. I'm feeling like quantity is not quite the right way to think about it, especially in the space where you can't make yourself, you can't brand yourself and really stand out by being tremendously different than everybody else.
It is a tough one, right? You know, you can say, oh, be creative, but how creative are you allowed to be? I don't know in this instance that I would say like creativity is the right route, but I think maybe innovation could be the right route, but you have to be allowed to innovate.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of places in the financial services industry where you're not allowed to. And yet, you know, I see and meet people online all the time in that space who have really innovated with what they're doing and how they're doing it. And it does make them stand out, you know, to the extent that they're doing all the things that we might normally do in a coaching model and a consulting model. And they're bringing that into the financial services world. And that's like, you know, you're taking something from today and plugging it into an industry that in a lot of ways is like 30, 40 years in the past.
Exactly.
And that helps them stand out. So you can't do that with every structure. And Anthony might not be able to do that within his structure. But to me, it's an easy way to stand out is just kind of start to embed with some of that innovation. And I think there is room to do that, even if you're in a culture or within a box that doesn't necessarily facilitate it. It doesn't mean you can't do some of it. You just maybe can't do all of it. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Doc, what's your take on that, man?
So I want people that are to stand out right now. And if you're watching us, to drop in the comment who you are, because we can't tell you're here. The only way we know is you let us know. So shout out, stand out, put your name down in the comment, let us know you're watching.
Yeah, hit us up with a comment or drop a question in there if you got one. But we'd love to know who's watching. So give us a shout out.
You don't have to if you're shy. I get it. Because it never fails. As soon as I say, go ahead and let us know you're there, someone drops off. Like they get afraid. And it just happened. So no pressure. But if you want to stand out, we'll shout you out.
No pressure.
If you want to stand out.
And I'm going to bring up a great video that was introduced by somebody I know today in a networking event. Barbara Flynn, who's we've had on our podcast, but I don't think she's on Facebook, so she's not in the EML with us. But she had a famous pianist, classical pianist, who became a coach and a speaker, and her name's Jade something. But we watched the video about Jade, and she talked about how in her business, you know, she's a concert pianist, so she would get up on stage, she would look at the audience, she would nod, she would sit down, she'd play, and if she played well, she'd stand up and nod and walk away, and they'd clap. And if she played really well, they'd keep clapping, and she'd come back on and she'd nod again, and then she'd play a little bit more, and she'd do the same thing. She'd get up, nod, and walk away. But her business went nowhere until she actually started talking.
Yeah.
So just think, and she's like, she says hello to the audience one day and just starts talking to them, and all of a sudden her popularity, it skyrockets. And so even in the world of classical music, concert pianists can go ahead and do something very different. And now she's a motivational speaker that embeds music and the piano into how she
really
motivates
cool.
and speaks. Really great video. I'll have to find the details on that. I wish I could tag Barbara Flynn because I'd have her just kind of drop it in the comments. But that was a great example of standing out. First name Jade, concert pianist. You could probably look it up online if you haven't had a chance yet. Check that out. Really cool story about how to stand out that I just saw today.
You just wanted to say that word over and over again, didn't you?
No. So
not that I know my business partner at all, but
we're jotting things down. I hand a pen to the guy next to me to use. He's like, "Don't hand me your pen." I don't take anybody's pen out of their hand. And I'm like, all right, dude, it's just the pen. That's all that's it. I couldn't get over it. It was
The
unbelievable.
pen is broken. You ever seen that sign?
Well, COVID has definitely opened up possibilities for my pen kleptomania habit. I have a problem with using people's pens and then walking away with it, not intentionally, but it has become quite a joke among my friends and family. Don't leave any pens out when Sue's over, because she'll find an excuse to use it and walk away with it. Nobody's sharing their pens right now, so
It's true.
yeah.
I still carry around a lot of pens that I give away because people always ask. It's unbelievable. You sit down with a client, you have a decent pen, they always want it for some reason. So you're not alone in the klepto side of things. Some people just ask nicely.
I'd like to think I'm not intentional about it.
Yeah, that's good. All right, what else do we have here? And if you're watching us live, do us a favor, just drop us a comment, let us know what you're doing. Ask us a question if you'd like to. Happy to answer it. All right, so
if you are on the podcast and you're listening to this and you don't know what the heck we're talking about,
yeah, that would make sense.
We're available on a couple different platforms. So you can go into our Facebook page, JB and the Doctor, our business page, and you can find the link there. Or you can join the EML, which is a much better thing to do. It's the same name as the podcast, the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab, where you can actually go on, ask some questions, join us, interact with awesome people like STK and Dr. Priscilla, who just said hi inside the comment section there. Dr. P, our previous guest, and awesome friend. So these amazing resources are all available inside the lab. So make sure you're taking advantage of that. And back to our regular schedule program.
So
I'm just going to do ads today. That's my job.
Yeah, we're ads and sponsorship.
Yeah, I love it.
That's a whole nother question. Circling back to Instagram, asking about an ad agency to our team members the other day, and the next thing I know, I'm getting a bunch of ads from Instagram on, ad agencies. Coincidentally,
It's amazing how that happens.
Dr. P, we are doing awesome. Thanks for joining us again. We loved having you last month. So if you can't tell, we loved having you so much. We brought on another coach because we love the dynamic. So Dr. P is a big member of our lab. She's always doing stuff. She's fantastic. Have you met her, STK?
I have not.
You two should connect. You two would get along really, really well.
I don't know if you can see the comments, STK,
I can.
But they're Dr. P said hi to you.
Oh, hi. Love to connect. Awesome.
So we've got another challenge somebody ran across, and this is an interest one. I can speak to this one personally. I'm new to the area, and I'm struggling to get myself off the ground. So, and they're just trying to grow their business. And the question becomes, well, how do I do it if I'm new to the area? So I'm going to jot that in the comments.
Well, I connected with somebody recently who moved to Philadelphia, which I live outside Philadelphia, about 2 years ago. And he has, I can't even describe to you how many local connections, followers. I've seen him at numerous events. Like, he's in the right space at the right time for his profession. And I met him at an event, and I won't even say I met him. I noticed him at an event. He's different. He stands out. He's very well dressed. He's a personal stylist for men. So immediately I noticed that he was dressed differently at an event. I introduced myself and found out that he had only been in this area for 2 years. And I said, how do I see you in all these right places on LinkedIn, connected to this person? Like, I've been living here for 20 some years, 30 years, and networking for at least 15. And I know all these people. And how did you do it in 2? And he said he made the conscious decision when he moved to Philadelphia from LA to do his research before he started going to networking groups and started connecting with people. And he started with a really well connected group of people, and he allowed them to connect him to the right people. And I thought it was really interesting that he didn't just start going to networking events to see who he met. He researched who was the well connected, who was the person, who was the group that he needed to meet and get in with. And he said it took him about 3 months to figure it out.
So that's I think there's a lot to take away from that, right? You know, that kind of that question of preparation and planning, maybe,
Yeah.
or that idea behind there. It's like, hey, what do you think about this idea of just taking a step back and being very thoughtful and deliberate about what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
And what can I gain by doing that? I think that's very, very smart. And just to dig at that, STK, it's not just, hey, I'm going to be very thoughtful about who I want to meet. I'm going to be very thoughtful about who can introduce me to who I want to meet, because it's not necessarily about meeting my end client. It's about meeting the people. And I believe this is truly how we scale in business. We meet the people who are always in front, day in and day out, with a number of our ideal clients, and they're serving them in another way. And so now, instead of just finding one person that we can work along with, we have one person that can continuously feed us time and time again with more and more people. And that, to me, is definitely a really thoughtful and very smart approach to take for this type of situation.
Yeah, and I admired, the brain behind that thinking, which we ended up having a great conversation about it, because it took me years to learn that kind of on my own. That it's more about the people that you're connecting with and that are your close connections. Who are the people behind those people? And when I have those conversations, when I work with a client or when I have a networking conversation, it's never about me showing up and pitching my coaching to that person. It's never about that. Now, sometimes does it end up that way? Yes, absolutely. But it took me so long to figure that out without somebody teaching it to me, that it kind of delayed my progress in the beginning of that networking coaching journey, because I looked at every relationship like, ooh, this could be my next client, instead of, let me add value to this person and give in a way, just like show up and be me and let them know me. And that's going to, I don't know, kind of facilitate more of a relationship, more of a connection, and more people knowing actually what I do, rather than me just trying to sell to every individual that I meet.
So what I'm hearing, and I heard it from your example, I heard it from the example that you gave with him, I heard it from JB, and Dr. P even hit it in the comments, strategy.
Yeah.
And we're not all the same, right? We're all unique individuals. We all have different strengths. We all have different things that we call upon, and different ways that we like to do it, different personalities that are attached to it. But the common denominator that we all can do is have a strategy, so we're not just going into it just like throwing out the wind. Doesn't matter what the strategy is. It could be connecting with a bunch of people before you get there. It could be bringing value to people. It could also be that my strategy is, hey, everybody, the person that walks in, I buy them a drink. They might remember me. That could get a little costly, but right, there's just all different ways, but it's still a strategy. It's not just done blindly.
Right.
And as long as you're putting together some strategy that fits for you, that you're comfortable with, it can work. And the beauty of all this stuff is you get to try different ones, right? So you can keep trying different things till you find the one that works best for you. Because using someone else's idea might work great for them, but it might not hit the same way for you, and that's okay too.
I can appreciate what Jeff's asking here and that challenge, because I went through it. You know, when I moved to Florida, I moved from California, and I moved to California from Texas, and I moved from Texas to Connecticut. But California to Florida, I had family here, but family in the medical field. I'm not in the medical field, and I was growing a business from the ground up. You know, no salary, just, you know, whatever, I eat what I kill type of situation. And I'm brand new to an area and I know nobody. So how do I get out there and do it? Well, you know, I don't want to pretend like I'm a genius in what I did, but I think I got out there, and I got out there heavy and hard. And I started to meet people, but I did a lot of things that maybe get looked down upon, but were very effective. Cold calling, for example.
Really?
I did very targeted cold calling, but I got a list of hundreds of people that were targeted, that were the specific type of people that I knew would be great centers of influence for me. And I went out there and I called them. And here's the amazing thing: when you're trying to connect with somebody, not to sell them, but just to introduce yourself, because you might be able to add value to the people that they work with. The incredible thing is they're a lot more receptive, especially if you're bringing value or coming in with a unique approach. Gosh, just the fact that you're picking up the phone, it's something else. And you're willing to have that conversation with them. So a lot of people sat down with me and set up appointments with me just because they were like, well, what is this guy doing? Because it is unique. Nobody else has called me about this. And I'm not hearing from other people on this. So I think if you can come in with that unique value proposition, and you're not necessarily going hard and heavy at your target audience, but to the people around them, like we've been talking about with that strategy, I built my entire business that way.
Wow.
100% referral driven business, basically, and essentially, and that's how I built it. Didn't happen overnight, though.
No, it doesn't.
It does not happen overnight, unfortunately. It just does take time. And so hopefully when you're new to an area, you have the runway to be able to do that. I think if there's one thing I see professionals and business owners mistake sometimes, is it's the length of runway you're going to need to get up and running. And that could mean either more resources of time or money, natural, like hard money, to invest into your business than you expected. There's just sometimes no way around either one of those things.
I think when I look back, 15 years ago, I didn't have as many assets or, value things in my toolbox to give away. But now, 15 years later, I met someone new today who, all of her clients are my ideal client. Every single one is my ideal person. And I said, what I would love to do is be some sort of value add to your clients. And it literally takes me a minute to add somebody's name and email to my online learning center. Now, normally I give that to my clients that are in my mastermind group. But if she has clients who are my ideal clients, I can put them into that learning platform and they can do it on their own without a coach, but it's still mine, but I'm giving it to her to gift to her clients. And I told her, I said, normally that's part of my mastermind group, but I'm willing to do that as a value add. For your clients need me. They need what I have, and I would love to give it to them. I'd love to be the one that give it to them. And she was like, wow, well, I'd love to take a look at it and see what's in there. And I've never had anybody offer something like that.
That's that. What and doesn't this loop right back to the very first question and challenge we answered, which is how do I stand out? What do I do to stand out in a crowded space? I'm curious, STK. 15 years ago, if you kind of go back in time a little bit, do you think you would have identified right off the bat that, hey, this is somebody who has all of my ideal clients as their clients? Would you have known that?
No.
Do you think there was a way for you to have learned that early on, or maybe to speed up how you figured that out? I'm just curious.
Maybe if I had had a mentor or a coach who did business the way I wanted to do it. I gravitated in the early days of my coaching to like online coaches who, well, they have their place and they're great. I don't want to bash anybody, but they weren't doing business the way I wanted to do it. Through speaking and referrals and networking, because that's what I had done in my previous career. And I wanted to be able to use those connections I had from my previous career in this one. And nobody understood that I worked with for at least the first couple of years. So it was really kind of figuring it out on my own through trial and error and saying, ooh, I don't like that. That feels horrible. So I'd say about 5 years it took me to figure it out. Like, who are my people that have my ideal client behind them?
I think that does take time and experience. And I could actually potentially attribute this to Dr. P, because it might have been her that said it in one of our very early podcasts. The difference between a coach and a mentor is a mentor can tell you how to get to A from B based on their experience, right? So if you're in the same place they were, they're going to be really good as a mentor on telling you, hey, you're at point A, let me get you to point B.
Yeah.
But if they're not coming and coming from where you are, their A to B isn't necessarily going to be the right A to B for you. And really the difference between a good mentor and a good coach is a good coach is going to recognize that, hey, my way maybe isn't your way. And instead of trying to train you to their system and their way, they actually take you by the hand and say, okay, I understand where you are. It's not where I was. Here would be the best way to do that. So it's very different, right? Mentorship and coaching in that respect. And I think that was Dr. P that even said that.
Well, I think that's where we focus on the why, right? Because if you know why something works, then you can implement it into different strategies. That's why the how and the why go so well together. How to do it, but why you do it, then you can put it into whatever system works for you. And that's where the good coaching comes in, is because now you can take that same skill and put it into other places. Once you know why it's working for you and why it works, then it doesn't matter who the person is. You just learn to your strengths, which I think is the big thing we were talking about earlier too, is finding what strength you're really good at and then using that. JB mentioned cold calling. You have to be outgoing and being willing to take some rejection. And that is one of the strengths that JB has, that he said, okay, I don't care. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
That's not one of your strengths. That's probably not the best strategy, right? It's knowing what you're good at and then implementing a way that it works. STK had some good assets. She was able to pull from her assets and use that. That was a strength of hers. So she was able to implement it. If you don't have that asset, you can't pull from that. So you have to know what you're good at. And I'll give a little story to go on to that idea too. From a therapy world, think about it. Now, I was starting my practice and wasn't really well known in the area yet, but I have a big background in the hospitality world. So I understand how people meet each other. Now, as a therapist, we don't always treat everybody. We need referrals, like just in any other business, right? But therapists don't really have a great place to kind of build a referral group. You go onto Facebook, everyone's an expert at everything. It's always the same people. It's funny how that works. So how do I find people in my field that I can refer to, that I feel confident putting my name attached to? So I pulled on a strength that I had. I was really good at planning parties. So I created a happy hour mixer. And no therapist was doing that. No therapist ever thought of that. But I knew nobody knew me. So what did I do? I pulled on the people that were already popular in the area, and I asked them to be my special guest. show up. You don't have to do anything but show up, say that you're coming, and I'll buy you some drinks. And they did. And then people showed up, and then that thing grew. And now that's what I was kind of known for. And that's how I made my name in the area with other therapists. So you have to think outside the box, but I knew that was my strength because I was able to pull on my previous experience. So unconventional, all of us did something very different, but we all had a strength that we used. So find your strength.
Yeah. I think that's a great segue, Doc, to one of the next challenges that we had somebody bring up that joined the group, which is they left this really broad, but I think we can probably choose what we want to speak to this, maybe even get personal on it. Their biggest challenge is fear. Fear.
That is one of my favorite topics. Fear is a way for your subconscious to keep you safe. And it could be a variety of things that it happens from, whether it's fear of public speaking, fear of putting yourself out there. I've had clients not want to put their picture on their website. And I had to say, you're a coach. People are signing up to work with you. If you can't put your picture on your website, we have deeper issues that you have to tackle first before you go out there into the world to help other people. And I think fear of something is what holds people back from taking action 99.9% of the time. And it's the fear of the unknown. And it could be fear of success, but you don't know. You don't know. So you're going to stay safe and just stay where you are.
Trey?
So first thing I'm thinking, I just have a bunch of song lyrics popping in my head with fear in it. For those of you who don't know, we've been having some fun on Instagram lately. So if you're not following us on Instagram, please do. I am at JB the Doctor. JB is at Comfortably Numb, and it's also at JB the Doctor as well. I've been doing Psycho Rock with the Doc, where I take some song lyrics and then give a psychological fact behind it.
Oh, I love this.
Like that was the first where my thought was I was running through all different Public Enemy lyrics. But I'll digress the singing for now. That's also part of my job today is advertising cheap plugs. No fear. There was that brand. I don't know. Remember if you guys remember that clothing brand? No Fear.
No Fear. Yeah. Oh my gosh! Of course.
Right? Yeah.
I love those.
It was
clothes.
Just the whole idea of wearing the hat that said "No Fear." I naturally had less fear because I told myself that. Funny how that works, also. But something STK said I think is very true. A lot of times with fear, it is the unknown. Because we don't know what to expect. So we're worried and we put up the defense around that. The other very interesting thing about fear that people don't really put together, as an emotion, fear is not much different than excitement.
Yeah.
So fear, anxiety, excitement all trigger those same parts of the brain, and they all kind of operate the same way. So a lot of times we just have to actually learn what our emotions are, because we could truly just really be excited about something. But because it is unknown and we don't understand it yet, we perceive it as fear. So sometimes take a step back and say, am I really fearful for this? Or am I just really excited about this and it's just presenting that way? And you can change your whole mood and mindset on that and come out of it in a totally different way. And if you're not, you can also just tell yourself that it is very similar to excitement, and maybe even switch that in your own mindset from fear to excitement.
Yeah, that's a great point, Doc, because they are so similar. I'm gonna start here and just say, so we all of us deal with fear, and everybody deals with fear. And I'll give a great example for myself. I love to go on stage, but it doesn't mean that I still don't feel anxiety and some fear before I go on stage. I just know how to channel that into energy, right? And to your point, Doc, I think I've learned over the years that can be a sign that you're scared, or it can be a sign that you're getting yourself ready for something, right? And you're channeling that into energy.
Did someone say excitement, maybe?
Well, exactly, to get excited. And I love to entertain. So for me, it does become very exciting. But fear is really, it's there for everybody. The reality is, if somebody tells you that they don't have fear, they're just full of it, right? They're just BS. And they're really good at BSing themselves as much as you, because if they truly believe that, it just, I mean, maybe if they're a robot, they don't have some fear, but everybody's afraid of something. And I think in business, we all go through stages of fear. And to both of your points, it's a lot of times it's about change and uncertainty. We crave certainty. It's why when we talk in sales and we talk about sales, it's always about creating certainty and peace of mind for people. I can distill sales down to greed and fear as the two emotions that drive people's decision making. And sometimes,
for sure.
Oh, yeah, STK, a lot of times people tell you that's too simple. And I'm like, I don't think it is. We rationalize the decisions we make, but it's typically because we want or we're afraid. It's one or the other, and it's going to drive. It's going to drive the decision. So certainty and peace of mind is something that's very easy to sell to people because it speaks to fear and it speaks to what they want together. So we always have fear to deal with. And so if you're dealing with it, it's okay. I think it's just how you're responding to it. Are you reacting to it, and is it shutting you down? And is it making you not take action? Or are you using it to create some excitement and energy, to the doc's point? And if you're able to step back and take that plunge, it's like diving into a cold pool. Nobody wants to do it up front, unless you're like Wim Hof or whatever, but nobody wants to dive into the cold pool until they get in there. And then it's, oh, this isn't so bad. It actually feels pretty good. I like it.
I kind of like it. I'm going to confess. But I was going to say that fear or, when you have those moments where it's almost like a choice point that you allow fear to stop you from doing something. And, so that's when self-sabotage kicks in. That's when you either start avoiding things or you start, maybe underachieving or just plain not even thinking, not addressing things. And it's because of that unknown afterwards. And I feel like people who have tackled the fear, who, I didn't like doing videos but I knew I had to. So, well, let's get good at it. And with practice, the fear becomes less. Just like when I was, a snowboarder and would jump out of helicopters, there was a first time that I had to do that, right? There was a first time, and the first time my thought was, okay, I'm in the helicopter. We're going to land up top. I'm going to get out, and it's going to be amazing, fresh tracks all day. And then the helicopter gets to the top, and it doesn't land. And I was like, what the hell? What? And I couldn't breathe. And I was so excited for this day of fresh tracks all day, powder up to my waist. Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. What do you mean the helicopter doesn't land? I didn't even think to ask that question. The helicopter doesn't land. And that's all I repeated. The helicopter's not going to land. The helicopter's not going to land. I was so paralyzed with fear to jump out, because it's not like you jump out and you have to go. It's jump and go. There's no wait and assess. It's, oh my God. But as soon as I tackled it the first time, it wasn't there the second time. So I think if you can get to that point where you're ready to tackle and not tell yourself the negative outcome, you're in it and you're going to do it and you're going to hope for the best. And it might not be jumping out of a helicopter, but it might just be showing up on Facebook Live and doing something that's uncomfortable for your business. Once you do it, it gets easier and it's fun. So
I think there's a general misconception about emotions that people have in general. Like there's good and bad emotions. And there's really not. You know, we like to say anger, frustration, and fear, those are bad emotions. They're not. They're just emotions.
Mhm.
And all emotions are good because why? Because we're alive.
Yeah.
If we didn't have emotion, that wouldn't be the case. So as long as we're living beings, that are processing stuff, we're going to have different emotions. And it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be afraid. All those things are good. They're just as good as being happy and joyful and excited, as long as they're done in the proper place, right? When it becomes a problem is when we become obsessive over it and we don't allow ourselves to process it. So any emotion that we feel, if we take the time just to process it a little bit, whether it's in that moment or around that moment, then that emotion gets transferred into something else that we can use. And that's data, right? We get that emotion, like how we feel from that. And I think that's what you're just saying with jumping out of that helicopter. There was an emotion there. That was a proper emotion. You should feel a little bit of fear because your body's also trying to protect you. Your brain's like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like something we should be doing. Until you can process it and see that other people are doing it or getting to the idea that it's safe. And then you allow yourself to switch that emotion to excitement. And then when you're done, it's joy and it's happy. And then let's do it again. But emotions are okay. And the more that we can realize that we're going to go through a range of them at any given moment for any kind of thing, and we can just allow ourselves to feel what we feel in that moment, we open up a whole new world.
Do you two think assumptions jump into this a lot? You know, we talk about fear, and fear is this way to protect ourselves from some perceived danger, right? Generally, that's why we feel fear. I don't mean to be, tackle your expertise here, Doc, but there's some perceived danger we're responding and reacting to. And I think a lot of times we just make assumptions about the results that we're going to see from certain things. And that assumption leads us down a fear spiral, right? It's like a cascade. It just more and more and more because I just keep creating these worse and worse scenarios in my head. A lot of times it just comes from assumptions because we just make an assumption that, oh my gosh, this is what's going to happen, rather than actually doing it and seeing what the results are and seeing what the results of that experiment are. Because like the doc and I say all the time, it's just a bunch of experiments. And sometimes we get the results that we expect and sometimes we don't. And both are okay. But most of the time, the decisions we make are not going to change our lives forever. And that's not to say that decisions don't matter. It's just, there's a lot of decisions we make in life that we can be afraid to make. And there's a lot of things we can be scared of when it's really somewhat minor and we just build it up into bigger things. And I think a lot of that comes down to assumptions. And I'm not sure if you two agree. It's just something that was tickling the back of my mind when we were talking about this.
I agree. I think, the more you tell yourself stories about the negative things that could happen, I try to stay out of that space myself, try to help my clients do the same thing, and look at failure or something bad that happens as just data. I love data. I love collecting data. I love keeping track of it. I love looking back at old journals of, fitness and nutrition and sleep patterns and geek out on stuff like that. And it's just information. When were you heavier? When were you at your best? When was I running, a 5-minute, certain amount of time to do a mile? I forget what my time was, a 3-minute mile.
There was a 5-minute, 3-minute mile? Doing what? You were flying. Running. Oh man, don't remind me not to go running with you. You are fast.
Not now. I can't do that now. No, it was like a 5-minute mile, I think was my time. I can't remember. But
my lungs hurt just thinking about a 5-minute mile.
I know, it's hurting me right now. But
I'm limping today because I tried to run yesterday. But so I want to clear up something too with data, because I think that's sometimes scary too, right? I love data. And I don't always think of data in the same way as everyone, because I think a lot of times we hear data, we think numbers, we think the journals that you're talking about. But a lot of times when I refer to data, it's also just the data that we collect in our own brain, because our brain is just constantly collecting experience. And then we use that. So the assumption isn't necessarily always a bad thing either, as long as it's not just a blind assumption, right? Because we're using that assumption to kind of help figure out what we're going to do next. And we have to give it a little thought so we don't blindly walk into something that's really dangerous. But the way that we do it is that we use that data that we've collected, either from ourselves, from other experiences, things we've seen, and then we use that to make the best kind of judgment that we can going forward. And it's not always right. That is the whole idea of it, is then we're collecting more data from the next thing that we do. But that's the way we kind of use this way to make that next decision. And that's where I say, when I say data a lot, because I know some people go, oh, I'm not writing everything down. I can't keep track of all this.
You don't have to write it down.
And a lot of it is just natural data that we're just naturally collecting from experience.
As somebody who writes everything down, I'm a little disturbed that you don't have to write it down.
You don't have to, but
it's just different kind of data. Everyone has their own strengths.
You have to be aware of it, though, right? You have to be aware. And I'm going to come back to sales for you, JB. Like, if you started making those sales calls and it didn't work and it didn't connect, would you still be saying the same thing today that didn't work 10 years ago? No. You collected the data. Ooh, when I say this, that doesn't work. When I say this, people are more receptive. I think that's the data, right? That's the awareness of what you're saying, how you're being. Well, how am I networking? How am I connecting? How am I following up? Well, that type of follow-up didn't work. This type of follow-up does work. And collecting that information and finding what works for you.
And that's why we collect multiple data points, right? We don't just pick one thing and say that works or doesn't. We try and try, and we keep making adjustments and keep trying, because we can't get one data point doesn't give us the answer. We have to keep collecting, and this is where it says over time. So you make that assumption based on the data you have so far. Then it works, it doesn't work, you collected more data, and then you add that to your pile, and then you keep going forward.
You know, a lot of ways that's your compass, right? How do you see the forest through the trees? It's with that. So this is pretty cool. We talked about a lot of stuff here. Just to recap, we've got elderberry and Zoa drinks along with the Yingling, and we talked about how to stand out in a crowded space. We discussed how to develop an audience and meet people when you're new to an area and growing. And we talked a lot about fear. We covered a lot of different stuff today. Doc, any top takeaway from the day?
That it has been a day. It's a Tuesday.
Super insightful. Thank you so much for that one.
It is a I've said deuce a lot today. I've said Tuesday a lot today. So 2, and hopefully you've taken at least 2 good things from tonight.
Not Doc's good things. STK, you're going to help him out though, right?
What am I going to say?
I don't know. What top takeaway from today, or top 2 takeaways, or 2 2s?
Don't be fearful about doing things differently. You know, changing up what you're doing and tweaking it. When I was a health coach and coaching nutrition and fitness, I had it all figured out for that. And then when my coaching pivoted, I had to do it all over again, because it was a different ideal client, a different coaching genre, and wow, what I did over here doesn't work here. So just be willing to try different things.
Yeah, that's important. You have to be willing to put out there. I think action is always better than inaction.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be moving in some direction than sitting still most of the time. I know that there's always exceptions to the rule.
I'm thinking about in like 10 minutes in action sounds awesome.
Yeah. I'm thinking about in 2 minutes.
Yeah. My top takeaway is all of these are interrelated, right? We talked about 3 totally different topics. I'm new to the area, I need to stand out, or I'm dealing with fear. And you can really say they all had, those are all concepts that can carry to each other, right? And they really do carry to each other, because a lot of times we know how to stand out. We're just afraid to do it. We know how to build ourselves up in a new place. We did it every year as kids when we entered a new grade. For most of us, I mean, hey, you learned how to do it, or you go to a new school, or you move, or this or that. You've been doing that your whole life. You've been standing out your whole life, and you've been dealing with fear your whole life. So these are things that we all have experience in. Sometimes it's easy to get lost in the moment, though, because we can't step back, which is why it's fun to do things like this and really respond to it objectively, because while we've experienced it too, because these are all very universal things, we're not necessarily in the middle of those ourselves right this moment. And so to me, the biggest takeaway is when you are in the middle of something, it's always nice to put it out there to get some objective feedback from other people, because they can help you. And everything that we talk about is always universal. That's my big takeaway.
Oh, I love that.
You should put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
What part of it? Just my face.
Everything is something.
Everything
Universal.
is something. It's universal. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us this
You're welcome.
episode of Better Business Brewing. For those of you watching us, thank you for watching us. If you haven't watched this yet and you're listening to it on the podcast, thank you for listening. You're watching on YouTube. Click subscribe, follow. If it's on the podcast, give us a 5-star review. Make sure you subscribe as well. We do this for you to help answer your questions and address your challenges. And of course, if you're not a part of the EML, make sure you do join us on the EML. Suzanne, while we've got you here, just in case people want to, how can they get a hold of you?
SuzanneTaylorKing.com, and my Facebook group. I put a link to your Facebook group tonight. My Facebook group, the Idea Lab for Entrepreneurs. You're welcome there to connect with me. I give lots of value, just like you guys do. And your Facebook group is about the only one I interact in. So thank you for doing what you do. Appreciate both of you. And thanks for having me.
There's just so much synergy that even our Facebook groups almost have the same names. They're so
I
aligned.
know, it's kind of creepy, right?
It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
You can find us pretty much everywhere, right, Doc? Whether it's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, our podcast, Spotify, Apple, so on and so forth, Facebook, yada, yada, yada. We're all everywhere, aren't we?
At JB and the Doctor, or of course, jbandthedoctor.com, where you can get tons of fine information on how to work with us.
So thank you all. Have yourselves a good night. And if you are still having one of these, I'll join you off the air for another.
Nice.
JB, I'm out.
Have a good night, guys.
Peace out,
Good
you.
night.